Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is that you're watching this podcast. I thank you so much for your support. I welcome you and I honor our Lord and Savior with this particular podcast today. God is so good to have brought Desiree into my path and to the path of so many others. And what I mean by honoring God. Every time we have a podcast, a guest that comes on, I give God the glory because they are coming on to share their journeys and to share their healing. And our hope and our prayer is that it helps you, the listener, to hear that you are not alone. And that is the whole purpose of this podcast. We want you to know that you're not alone and that God is good and He is right there waiting for you. So my guest today is Desiree Cruz. And, I heard of Desiree through social media, heard about a book that she wrote, and it is one that is called Warrior Women. And, women supporting women these days is kind of 50-50. I think. Sometimes women are good about supporting others and lifting them up, and sometimes others prefer not to, I guess, might be the polite way to say it. But I have found in Desiree that she's on a mission. She's on a mission with this foundation that she has. She is the co-founder of Merge Worldwide International. She is a Christian life coach, and she's a leading author of the book Warrior Women. And I cannot wait for you guys to hear her story, her journey, one of, I would say, trauma, but also led to healing. And that's what we are here to discuss. So I'm going to bring Desiree in, and I know that you're going to be blessed by her story. Welcome in, Desiree. I'm so glad that you are
Hi.
here. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. We are so excited to hear your story. So, first and foremost, tell us a little bit about yourself. I kind of mentioned briefly, and I'll have the links in the description, guys, if you want to connect with Desiree. But tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do.
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction. It was so nice. I am Desiree Cruz. I'm the co-owner of Merge Worldwide with my husband, Jesse Cruz. We host live events all over the entire world to inspire entrepreneurs and sharing their story and the power of their story. I'm also a mom of three beautiful girls. Was a teacher, for a special ed teacher, actually, to be exact, for 10 years before I resigned just recently. And let's see, I am the leading author of Warrior Women, and I'm on a movement to empower as many women as possible, actually, 1 billion to be exact.
I love that. I love that. Let me ask you about your teaching. So I think so. I was a teacher too a long time ago, and my sister is still currently a special ed teacher. And what a special being it takes to
Mhm.
teach in general, right? But then to be able to even nurture and love on children with special needs. So,
Yes.
and you did that for 10 years.
Yeah. So it was a really strange story, but so I actually have my degree in public justice. I have my bachelor's in public justice. So I was going to go into federal parole. That was my mission. That's like what I felt like I was called to. Then I got this random teaching position offered to me, and I was like, I don't know what it was, but I just felt God say take it. So I took it. And it was honestly exactly where I needed to be at that season of my life. Just amazing students. It really taught me a lot about myself. And like you said, it takes a very special person. And I believe that those students helped me more than I helped them. And it was just like, it was a perfect match for
Yes.
so long. I loved it so much. I was actually social skills, vocational skills, and occupational skills. And life skills teacher for over 10 years. So, yeah, it was amazing.
Wow. How beautiful. Oh my goodness. I love that. I love that, when you teach or coach or instruct, even in any relationship, right? That we are given the gifts that God has blessed us with to hopefully and prayerfully impact others in their lives. And I believe that teaching is one of the ways that,
Hmm.
it's such a great responsibility, but it's such an honor to be able to do that. So, wow, blessings to you. So I'm going to move into a little bit about your childhood. I always start there because I like to sort of find out where my guest and how my guest grew up, where they come from. And then it leads us into the next steps of our journeys, right? So, share a little bit with us about your childhood.
I really love that we started with teaching because I wanna make the bridge. So I really truly believe that I was called to teaching because I was the teacher to those students that I feel like I needed,
Mm,
when I was younger. So
yes.
growing up, I had two wonderful parents, worked very hard. We lived in southern New Jersey. It was a very well to do place. My parents had four kids and very little education. My dad was an entrepreneur. My mom just worked retail her whole life, so she was always gone. She was always at work
Mhm.
all hours of the week, always on holidays, on the weekends, at night. Like retail just has you all over the place.
Yes.
And I was the second oldest, and I did a lot of care for my younger siblings, and we were home alone pretty often because we had two parents that had to work and make the ends meet. But New Jersey started climbing into where you had to be of a certain bracket in order to be able to thrive in southern
Mm,
New Jersey, and my mom and dad struggled. She was in retail and he was in construction, and they learned real quickly that they just couldn't make the money that they had needed in that area to be able to have four kids and survive. So we really spent a long time. Um, I spent a long time witnessing what financial burden does
mm,
to families.
mhm,
And I specifically witnessed what it does to the man in the family, the one who's
mm,
leading the family. And so I got to see in my childhood often what stress does to your health, what it does to your mental health, what it does to your being able to regulate emotions,
mm,
what it does to marriage. My dad, unfortunately, he suffered a heart attack pretty young. He started having a lot of different health issues like diabetes crept in, and not healthy coping skills. So I really got to see really the impact of financial burden that's placed on the men of the family,
mm,
and what happens when we're not able to have the tools in place to control that. What happens is you reach to like things like food and drugs and whatever it is that people use for coping skills that are not exactly healthy. And unfortunately, I was a product of watching what happens when that happens. And
mm,
so my parents both loved us. They were wonderful people, but they just didn't have the tools. And then on top of it, not only did they not have the tools, but they grew up in a generation where you don't talk about that
mhm,
stuff.
mhm,
And so my dad really
mhm,
stuffed it for a long time, thinking he was the man of the family. Like he couldn't talk about that he was struggling in all the areas. So he stuffed a lot of it, and he really didn't do a lot of healing because he was stuffing everything. So I got to see firsthand what that looks like. And it wasn't really, there was a lot of moments in my childhood where I was pretty concerned for my parents, pretty concerned for their marriage, pretty concerned for their health. So I took on like this, like, I can help my siblings. I can, be the leader of the family to help care for them.
mm,
And try to be like the mother hen of, a role that I wasn't really supposed to be playing. I felt like it was kind of my responsibility, just by the way that my family was kind of set up, and I was the second in line, and I was the woman. So I became a woman pretty quickly in my childhood. I grew up pretty fast, and a little too fast, really. So.
I was going to say that it's amazing what instinctively children do when they are in situations like that. And I can so relate with, two parents working and doing their very best that they can. And, five children in our household for a while, and then two moved out. So then there were three, but still two parents working, the financial burdens and the toll that it takes,
Mhm.
losing a home, being foreclosed on. And what I'm so grateful for now is the fact that more people, uh, podcasters, social media creators, YouTubers are talking more now, but it's taken so long about the fact that it is okay for men. It's needed, not just okay, but it is okay for men to express their feelings. God gave us,
Mhm.
Jesus wept, was angry. And so it's totally okay for us to for men to express their feelings, their emotions, to talk about things, to not feel shame for feeling normal feelings and emotions. Life happens to all of us, and good or bad, we're human. And for the most part, I feel like we're all doing the best that we can. And on the other side of that, while parents don't mean to do, um, for children to suffer the repercussions of not talking
Mhm.
and discussing and being open and honest, is then children start feeling like I need to take the role of, I need to help my siblings. I need to be there for my siblings, to help them, to protect them, to help nurture them in a way. But then with that, which is a beautiful thing that siblings do, we do that. We take care of one another. Is then the long term repercussions of that? What can
Mhm.
happen to us as adults? And having to, and I speak for myself, it's being almost 60, um, it's taken a lifetime, I would say, because I have more years um behind me than I do in front of me. And it has taken a long time to
Mhm.
start unlearning
Yeah.
some behaviors and beliefs that I thought, I don't really know if that's the way I'm supposed to be thinking or whatnot.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
so tell me how that did. You it seems like you carried a lot of weight.
Oh, I sure did. Yeah. And like that's my whole mission. That's what I talk about.
Mhm,
My whole mission is that, Tish, it is true. I carried a whole lot of weight. I carried an awful lot of weight for a very long time. And I don't still to this day, like I see now how much weight it really was.
mhm,
And as children, you don't have a voice. You just think it's, part of your daily life until
mhm,
you become a little bit older and you start recognizing that, wow, like not everybody does live like this. And not all my friends carry this weight. And maybe this house isn't as functional as you thought, right? So
right.
like when you're little, you're like, this is your family, this is what it is, and you don't really have um a look of a different perspective unless you're in other people's homes. And so that weight really turned into a lot of really bad things for me, and it was terrible. I mean, I felt consumed by dysfunction. I felt very heavy. I felt very like I didn't deserve to have a good life. I thought that I was cursed.
Mm,
Um for a long time I carried around this weight of anger and bitterness that made me into a very rebellious teenager. I mean, I was a great person, and I still looked like I was fine, but I
mhm,
wasn't fine. I repeated a lot of the same things that I was watching, because as a child, you just think that that's what you do. And so, I saw my dad, you know, reach for things for coping skills. So I reached for the same things. And then I saw, the way that he dealt with things when he felt upset. And so I thought that that was normal. And so I would do the same thing. I had a lot of anger stored inside that turned into bitterness, that turned into things like I didn't care if you were older than me or if you had authority. I didn't respect you, and that you weren't going to tell me anything, like, and you're not going to teach me anything. And I don't trust people. And there was just a real lot of that for a very long time.
I
And
love that you are sharing this because, and again, people that are watching, I really hope and I pray that you share this. And again, it's not for me, for numbers or anything like that. That's not what I'm about. But young people need to hear this, and both male and female. But I'm going to just even err on the side of even young women, specifically because I know of a young woman who the same, and it's like a pattern of, um, you learn by watching. You learn by watching the people that love you the most, your parents, and that's what you learn. And so then you start to mimic that behavior, whether
Mhm.
it's consciously or subconsciously, and you do what you see, you do what you know. And the rebellion comes, yes, through anger. I know someone who is really going to benefit from your testimony, and so I thank you for sharing it. And I cannot wait, if they're not already watching and listening, to listen to it, because
Yeah.
I
I
think
was,
that children and we as adults and as parents, and yes, I know that we are doing the best that we can with what we know, right? But it is so important to gain healing from uh, childhood or trauma, talking to someone about what you've been through in order to heal and um, to destroy those generational curses so that our children
Mhm.
don't carry the weight of them and repeat. And it could be a never ending cycle. But
Yeah, it's like so what I say in my mission is like the weight in our heart, it's so heavy, and and unless we really start taking it seriously, it can be like a casket that we're carrying behind us, like that's dragging behind us. You're carrying these things with you. And when I was younger, I didn't see that, but I'll tell you what, all my teachers did.
mm,
My family did, my friends did. Like they knew. I actually was one of the students where, I don't know if you're familiar with the ACEs, but when you get flagged for having a lot of ACEs in your life, school districts will flag students because they see certain things pop up and they'll flag them. Like if they know that there's domestic violence in the home, if they know that there's drugs, if they know that there's police contact, if the students showing up under the influence of things, which I was frequently, like I was constantly smoking weed, constantly just putting myself in really not great environments. And
mhm,
at the time I didn't really take it too seriously because it was like whatever, it was cool and I enjoyed it and it made
right.
me feel calm. But then I realized, like, we carry around this casket kind of thing of red flags that follows us, and it's that weight that we're carrying in our heart that happens for a long time. And it continued as a young adult. I just was putting myself into these situations where, I was more worried about where the next party was rather than me talking about like things that I've actually gone through. Right. Like I didn't start even thinking about healing.
Mhm.
I didn't even know that I had anything that I had to work on really until I became in my 20s.
Yes. That is so true. That is so true. In the midst of it, and I speak for myself, in the midst of it, my dad was an alcoholic, and I watched that celebrating was, a part of celebrating was drinking. And, I had just bought a car and I was going to celebrate it and just drink and drink and drink. And like you said, in the midst, you don't really even know that you have anything to overcome. It's what you learn. It's learned behavior, which is,
Mhm.
the brain is such an amazing thing. It's also something that, I think they say that when you try to break a habit, it takes like 30 days or something like that. The more, but years and years and years of growing up as a child, learned behavior. It's not like breaking a habit. It's not like 30 days later and you're cool. It's like it's very incredible. I think that when you learn something and then you become an adult, and even though, I'll speak for myself, even though I knew that it probably wasn't the best thing for me, it was very hard to unlearn. It was very hard to
Mhm.
unlearn. I just kept doing and doing and doing and thinking that I was fine until I realized I wasn't. So
Right.
yes, yeah, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's true. I talk frequently now that I spend a lot of years unlearning. That's what I do. I spend a
Mhm.
lot of years unlearning what I've learned because I have to.
Yes.
So in my, in my 20s, I realized that I knew I didn't want to live the same life. So I said to myself, well, this is great. I love that you've shown me this, and I want to do everything completely opposite of what you've shown me. That's kind of how I was.
Mhm.
Right, and I would put it in their faces pretty frequently. I'd say, I don't ever want a marriage like this. I don't want a life like this, and I can't wait to get out of here so that I can start my own life. And so when I turned 17, I left as soon as I could. So I left at 17. I never looked back, and it was one of those things where I met a young man and I was so in love, and I was thinking this was my ticket to a better life. I was actually determined to have a better life. So I put myself in school. I did all the stuff for the school. I didn't receive help on really anything. I
Mhm.
had to navigate everything all by myself frequently. So I signed up for college and I put myself through school, and I moved out and met this young man, and I was working, and I thought, wow, this is going to be the best part of my life. I knew I wasn't going to have that life.
Mhm.
And he was my high school sweetheart. We did everything together, and we were engaged, and then we became pregnant, and I was about to have my first child with him and get married and live this happily ever after life. And on October 22nd, he was hit by I believe, was a drunk driver. Um, he was killed on the spot, and it was a hit and run. And it was so close to the home that he built for us that I could literally see the accident from my window while it
Oh
was
my
happening.
gosh.
And something woke me up that evening. I knew something was really wrong. And now that I look back at it, it's all God. And it was always God. And so unfortunately, I lost my fiance in a hit and run on October 22nd, in 2006. I was 9 months pregnant, and I had the baby shortly after.
Mhm.
And I remember looking at her, and that's when everything changed. And this is where I start my keynote. Typically, when I actually go on stage and I talk about this, is that heart shift that happened for me in that moment. And that's why I have this whole mission about heart shifts, is because your heart tells you things.
Mhm.
And often what we do is we kind of surpass it, or we deflect it, or we don't really take it seriously. But I do believe that the most change happens right after a heart shift.
Mhm.
So a heart shift for me in that moment was, I had to really look at myself in the mirror and say, and look at this little baby. I'm holding this newborn baby. I'm 21 years old. I knew I had a life full of generational curses.
Mm.
My one way to get out, I thought, was going to be my ticket out, and I was going to live happily ever after with my child and my husband, was a moment where I was screaming at God, like, why are you cursing me?
Mhm.
Like, did I not deserve to have a happy life like everybody else? I just didn't understand. I already went through all those struggles. And then I finally thought that I was going to be able to get released from those chains.
Mhm.
And then he has me in another situation that could have drowned me for good. I mean,
Yeah.
I could have really, really in that moment it could have went really bad.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there and I'm screaming at God. And I'm like, I just don't understand. Why would this happen? Why would you do this to me? Right. And I lived there for a while and
Mhm.
it was not good. But then I see this baby's born, and I look down at her, and I have never felt love like that before. Never.
Mm.
And I remember looking at her eyes and saying to her, I will never have my weight that I have in my heart burden you,
Mm.
because she didn't deserve it. She didn't
Right.
deserve my weight. She didn't deserve the weight of her father being killed in a hit and run. She didn't deserve it. And it wasn't going to be my weight that I was going to put on her and
Mhm.
continue that process of generational curses. I just wasn't. So I had to
I
look at
love
myself in
that.
the mirror and be like, this is it. This is where it changes. This is where it ends. This is the hard shift where I'm never, ever, ever going to have my weight burden her.
That's incredible because well, and the other thing is that you shared that you because there are so many people, including myself, that have blamed and shouted, and been in situations where we feel like, haven't I been through enough? Like, have I not been through enough? And why is this happening again? And why, God, are you allowing this? Or why are you doing this to me? What have I done to deserve this? Don't I deserve to have a good life? I don't understand why this continues to happen to me. And the fact also that you said that you sat there for a while and that because I feel like a lot of people need to know that when we do something like this does happen to us, or to them, that while we need to process and feel those feelings that God gave us, right? Whether they're anger or grief or sadness or blame or whatever it is, while we it's okay for us to feel those feelings or process through them. We need to continue to process through them and move forward, because staying there, it's not good. It's not a good place to land and to be. But the good news is there's growth from that. There's healing from pain, right? I mean, you get a cut and you fall down, you scrape your leg or whatever it is. It hurts. There's pain, and then there's the scab, and then the scab comes off, and there's healing from it. And I think it's the same for when things happen to us in life, we can sit in it. We can sit in that pain. It's not good to sit in it, or we can allow ourselves to process and heal and grow from it. And hopefully, prayerfully, that we can destroy those generational curses and or move out of that bondage, have the Lord break those chains for us. And so as you are processing through and you see your daughter, and had you known who the Lord was?
Yeah, no. And so I really do believe that this might be hard for some people, but I do believe sometimes things happen so that he can get our attention.
Absolutely.
And in that moment, I was so angry with God and I was screaming, and then he gave me the gift of Haley.
Mm.
And in that moment I felt the gift that I was given from all of that. And I remember thinking to myself after well, I was on a mission to be the best mom in the whole world.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, how do I honor him in the best way? And it's to take care of his baby girl in the best way possible. He wouldn't want me sitting in grief, um, in a destructive way,
Right.
uh,
Right.
and raising his daughter that way. So I said, well, that's not going to honor him. And I don't want to be that mom. So I I put everything I had into being a good mother. It was my only mission, and to fix myself along the way. And to be honest, in the beginning, it was more like I wanted to be a better mom than I wanted to fix myself, right? Because
Mm,
she was just a newborn baby at the time. So I sacrificed a lot of my own self stuff in the beginning. But then the best move I ever made was the day that I realized, I said, how am I going to teach her about death and heaven and God if I don't even know?
mm,
And so I said, it's time for me to be able to put myself into a church and to learn for myself so that I can teach her, because I don't know what I'm going to say to her. Someday this baby girl is going to grow up and she's going to ask me, and I have to be able to explain it to her.
mhm,
And so I put myself into a local church. I did not church around. I literally, I felt called to this one church. I walked in, and I'm still there today. And honestly, it's one of the best choices I've ever made in my whole entire life. Um, and it was really hard for me in the beginning, Tish,
mm,
because like I told you, I grew up in a very, there wasn't a lot of positive talk. There wasn't a lot of positive anything. We didn't talk about God. We didn't, my parents actually went to Catholic school and had a really bad experience with Catholic school. So we
mhm,
didn't talk about God. We didn't, there wasn't anything positive. Like I said, it was leaning more towards, unhealthy communication, unhealthy coping skills. So anything positive was really, really hard for me to receive.
mm,
And I still
mm,
have that barrier where I have a hard time receiving, and I'm working on that still. But um, so for me, walking into the church was a real struggle for me. Even though the church was amazing,
mhm.
it was so much positivity that I struggled. It was a me thing. I
Yeah.
was like, wow, this is kind of corny. This is kind of weird. This has got to be for weird people. This is, and I had to force myself to stay for like 3 years. It took me like 3 years just to be comfortable in my own skin in that church.
Wow, that is, I'm telling you, I know, I know that that is God. I can tell you that, very similarly walked into a church. Literally, I know that God carried me there because I'm not the typical type of person that's just going to walk into some place, not know anybody, um, with two little babies, but God is so good. He's so strong, and there was nothing that was going to get in his way. So led us up to the church, walked in, and it took me a little longer than you. I probably sat in this church for 10 years, close to 10 years before I decided to get involved in women's Bible studies or do anything other than attend church and listen. And I know for a fact the first few years we're just sitting there, and every once in a while hearing and listening. And then other times, wondering, why am I here? Just sitting there and just being there, but, and receiving compliments or, just anything. Again, the learned behavior, not hearing positivity. It
Mhm.
sounds like that's part of the remnants of your childhood. You never heard positivity, so now it's hard to accept it. And a lot of people don't understand that. I'm so glad that you said that, because there are a lot of people that will say, "Why can't," not just to me, but to anybody that can relate, "Why can't you just take a compliment?" And sometimes people say, "I don't know, I just can't." Maybe they don't know yet. Maybe they haven't discovered that it was a learned behavior, but
Mhm.
so true, so true.
Yeah, it was
Desiree,
a
yeah.
me thing. It was a me thing. It wasn't a
Yeah.
them thing. It was a me thing. And I had to face that. And my husband didn't really quite understand until recently when I told him, but he had no idea. For the first 3-4 years of me attending there, I didn't want to be there. I
Mm,
thought it was really corny. I thought it was really weird. I was just there because I wanted to learn more about, how am I going to explain it? And then as I became a Christian, I said to myself, well, I'm going to call myself a Christian, but do I even know what it says in it?
mm,
Do I even know what the Bible even says? So it's like, how do I call myself a Christian if I don't even know what it says in the Bible? So then I started reading the Bible. I started doing, um, just because I was curious about what it actually says. Am I actually believing what I'm claiming I believe? And
Mm,
then the more I learned about it and the more I was there and the more we got involved in the church and things, um, and then having like the positive people in my life and having like my pastor's perspective of things, of what it biblically says and how much, how much I needed it.
mm,
I needed it. It was like something finally was in my heart, and it was healing my heart in the places and the cracks and the things that were so broken for so long.
mm,
And it changed who I was as a person. It changed my perspective. It changed things of bitterness and anger and things that I held on to for so long. And it was crazy because, like, through my journey of learning about God and really leaning into my relationship with God, and I felt like the shifts happening in my heart and my attitude and my perspectives and my mindset and all of the things. Like, I just kept feeling all these shifts happening, and I liked it.
mhm,
I liked the positivity. I started really being grateful for the songs and the lyrics. I
mm.
liked really having that positive, it's like free therapy almost in
Yeah.
your life. And I was like, wow, like I don't know why people don't come, because again, it's like a free form of therapy. So it was really changing me in radical ways. Um, to a point where even I looked at my dad one day and I told him face to face. I said to him, well, because he was starting to come with me through some of the journey to the church, and which was amazing. And I looked at him one day and I told him, I forgive you,
Mm,
100% forgive you. I said, everything that we've gone through, all the things, all the stuff that we've battled, all the things that I've seen, all the things, I forgive you for all of it. And he looked at me like he could not believe that I have given him that forgiveness. And from that point on, our relationship was completely different,
wow.
because he
Wow.
didn't walk away. He didn't walk around me anymore feeling bad.
Mm,
He could feel that I actually really forgave him, and so it changed our relationship all the way up until when he passed. So, yeah, it was one of those steps that I think was the best steps I ever did in my life. And so for any of the listeners listening, I don't think that we should walk into churches hoping to find the best church, because people are always going to be people.
yes.
But I think we should walk in with the intention of just wanting to learn more about who he is and the things that he can do radically in your life. And I think when we focus on that and we lean in, he shows you in so much bigger ways what's possible. I never thought that I would be able to forgive. And, to this day, like, with the person who's killed my fiance in a hit and run, I've forgiven that person.
Mm.
And I never thought that I would be able to say that out loud.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, so I kind of want to move back just for just a minute. But so you started your journey there at the church, and did you meet your husband there? Your husband now? Did you meet your husband there?
No, actually, I met my husband. We actually went to high school together, but we never spoke. It's a very, very so funny love story. We never spoke to each other once. Um, but I met him actually at the park. So after my fiance was killed, I was single and by myself for a very long time, and I was on a mission to really start helping myself now.
Mhm.
I spent a long time diving into being a new mom, and I was still very young, and I had to put myself through college and all these things. So I was focusing on myself for quite some time, and then I was teaching my daughter how to ride her bike in a park. So we have a park that's very close to our house, and I would have to bring her to the park after I was done with my college courses for the day to teach her how to ride her bike. And my husband was there teaching his daughter on the park. So, like, they were playing at the park while I was trying to teach Haley how to drive her bike at the park. And we just happened to be at the same park at the same time with both of our kids there, and we knew we went to school together, but we never spoke to one another.
Mhm.
And they were pretty close in age. So it just happened to be such a God thing again, where he purposely places people exactly when you need them to be placed, just like he takes away people exactly when they should be removed.
Yes.
I truly believe that Jesse was placed in that park on that day. I think that his daughter needed me to be there on that day. And I think that my daughter needed him to be there on that day. And we were just at this place where I never thought I would meet somebody who had this similar story as me because again, my story is so wild that I didn't think that there was other people out there with a similar story. But
Mm.
Jesse had a very similar story where he was raising his daughter on his own and he had full custody of his daughter, and his um, experience with the army and the war and everything ended up in a really terrible divorce for him,
Mm.
and they ended up splitting and he was raising his child on his own. So I was like, wow, I just can't even believe that we're the same age with kind of very similar stories, and I'm raising my daughter, you're raising yours, and they were both really close in age and needed one another at that time. So it was really incredible.
And I mean, it's such a God thing. I mean, you can't say it's anything other than God. And one thing that you said, which I've said so many times, that, and I really have not really received any sort of feedback on what I've said, but it's right for me, I guess. Is there's beauty in life and there's beauty in death, and just like our Lord and Savior, there's beauty in his birth and there's beauty in his death. And I'm not talking about the cruelty, but there's purpose behind it. And the purpose is for us. And, I know for sure that when mine and my husband's son, Ben, was killed, he and his fiance were killed, it changed mine and my husband's lives, both individually and as a couple. Um, there was behaviors that needed to stop. And because of our son's death, it grabbed our attention and drew us closer to the Lord, not further away. And, there was purpose in Ben's life, and his passing, it was his biological mom was in heaven, and he mourned her until, I'm sure, the day that he died. I knew of it, addictions, and um, but he's free from that. And I know a lot of people hate to hear, well, I know where they are, they're free from that. But for me personally, um, seeing and knowing what God's purpose was and is for his life and for Ben's life and his death, and the beauty that came from his passing for my husband and I. There are people that are here on this earth for a reason, and their purpose on this earth is fulfilled while they're here and also while they've passed. And, you know, the death of your fiance, wow, his life and his death, what purpose that is given, for you, and to move forward and to see the steps that God has guided and directed for you and your daughter, and then your relationship, and then marriage with Jesse. And so tell me a little bit about what led you into your mission now in terms of empowering women, and what you do now, and then also how um, people can get a hold of you.
This other stuff. Okay. All right. So we had some technical difficulties, friends. So Desiree, you were talking about the passing of yours and Jesse's baby, Faith. And I kind of want to go back a little bit because we're having some technical difficulties, but I want to go back just a little bit. And you said that after her passing, that the two of you had to kind of peel the layers on certain things. And so with Christ being the center, in the center of y'all's marriage, how did grieving uh, the death of your baby, your child, y'all's child, how did that affect you? Did it, both of you?
Oh yeah. So for me, one of the light moments that I was able to realize in that moment was because I had lost my fiance in a hit and run, I had already experienced a significant loss.
Mm,
And so one of the only things that I could say that was positive from that experience was that it allowed me to be able to help my husband,
mhm.
because my husband had never had a significant loss. So with me having Pete killed in a hit and run, I was able to help Jesse with what that's like and the grief stages and all those things. And again, it's like one of those things where it's like you don't know what God is doing, but God used that scenario for me to be able to speak life into my husband, and so we were able
Yes.
to stay married and help each other through this, because it was terrible. I mean, losing a child, walking out of a hospital, and you get to see everybody else carrying their babies and all the things, and their rooms are already set up. Everything was already done. Everything was already set in place. We were getting ready to have her. And then not being able to walk out without our child, it was very difficult for my husband. It was difficult for me as well, but I had already had that experience, so I was able to get through it a little bit easier than Jesse was. So Jesse had a hard time with that for a while, and we got to a place in our marriage and our stuff where I told him, we have other children that are counting on us and they're watching us, and um, people are really seeing how our faith is played out right now.
Mm, yeah.
And part of faith is just when you don't have any control over anything, you just have to grasp onto what he says. And I knew he was going to make this into something bigger than us, like always, and he did that just indeed. I mean, our whole entire mission, our whole entire company was based off of faith stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. It is incredible. And so I know that you're mentioning earlier about how the Merge Worldwide came into play, and how you guys have a mission to help others to honor God and help others to share their stories and to heal. That you guys have had retreats. You also had mentioned that y'all's very first live event, or I know that you shared it with me, was June the 1st, correct?
Yeah, no. So my very first Warrior Women Bomb Global Conference, it was a women's empowerment movement. That was the
Gotcha.
first time I've ever done any kind of women's empowerment. It was my first one ever. I just did that with Nikki Cuesta on June 1st, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
Do you guys have plans to do any more in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we're just getting started, Tish. So we've been hosting live events all over the world for about 3 years now, and between the speaker competitions, because that's just really cool and fun, and being able to hear everybody's story. I also had a platform where I was able to meet a whole bunch of women from all around the world and hear their stories, and so I pivoted a little bit into to serve them who were not ready to get on the mic right away, where we pivoted so that we were able to publish their stories in a book. So that's where Warrior Women came from. And all of that turned into another live event and a live conference of women empowerment. And so he continues to keep showing me where I can really be called to, and it all is based on all of my circumstances, my upbringing, even with the teaching, and then my fiance, and then my daughter, and my marriage, and it's all such a bigger plan. And it's just been incredible to see him unfold in my life and have him continuously show up and show me where he wants me to be, where he's calling me to be, and how I can help people in the world. And it's been unbelievably humbling, honoring, beautiful. I mean, this is the happiest I've ever been my whole life. I feel like I'm walking in purpose. I feel like I'm walking in mission. I feel like from all of it, he's using me as a testimony to show people that it is possible to come out on the other side of this, and that he's been with me my whole life. And I'm just starting to see the power of him being with me on the other side of it now, and how we can really truly impact billions of people in the meantime. And so I'm on a mission right now to impact 1 billion women, 1 billion people. I've already impacted thousands, and I know that 1 billion is not too big for God. I think that he's going to just get us going, get us started, to really call people to really take heart shifts seriously, to be able to take the power of their story seriously. And it's been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible.
My gosh. And I absolutely love how, not even knowing your full story, and anyone that's listening would know either, but as you shared your journey and your testimony to God, I swear you can see God's hand in all of it, which is so powerful. I've got chills now, just now as I'm speaking about it, which is so powerful because people can hopefully look at their lives and maybe kind of hopefully first and foremost seek God and try to figure out the whys and process through and peel the layers, and but then step back and see, wow, there is a bigger picture for me. I am empowered by sharing my story and what God has done, and telling where he's going to take me, because even hearing your story and thinking about a vision of a book, and then look, bam, it's exploded, and look where you guys are now, you and your husband. And I know for a fact that this story, your story, your journey, your testimony, as well as I'm sure the other women that wrote in Warrior Women, I'm sure that their stories are impacting and changing lives as we speak. So how can someone, and again, I'll have the links to how people can get a hold of you. How can someone order a book? How can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so all the books are on Amazon. So Warrior Women 1, Turning Life Lessons into Legacy. And then there's Series 2.
Nice.
Yeah. And then on Facebook, you can just look me up on Desiree Cruz. Our company is www.mergeworldwide.com. On that website, it takes you to all the different things that me and my husband are providing, and what the mission is, and why, and how, and what we've been doing. We've been keeping awfully busy in the 3 years that we've been open.
Wow, I bet.
Yeah, and we're just hosting. We've been hosting events all over the world. We just got back from Italy. We did a legacy retreat, which was amazing. We did that in the Amalfi Coast in June. And we're actually going to Iceland here in a couple weeks. It's our first, it's our speakers retreat. So it's our first time that we're specifically doing a speakers retreat. So it's going to be amazing. And that's going to be in Italy in a couple weeks. Yeah. And then and everything, like my coaching, my husband's coaching, our events, what we've done, our recap videos of the events, everything's on the website.
Oh, excellent. Well, good deal. Well, I will post those links in the comments for anyone that is watching or listening. You guys can find links to get a hold of Desiree or Jesse, and also be able to purchase the book. And the one question I ask every guest that comes on after they finished sharing their story is, after everything that you have been through, everything from childhood to today, right at this moment, who would you say, Desiree, who is Desiree Cruz today? Who are you today?
I'm completely different. I'm completely transformed. Today, I am a woman who is empowered by God, to be able to be called on this earth to help people understand that it's okay for us to really lean into what our hearts are saying and what our stories are, and really fully vulnerably showing up in that space. I think in that is true authenticity, and we're able to impact is more than we could ever imagine when we do that and we stand in that. I am a woman of faith who believes that heart shifts are one of the biggest pieces to transformation, and that we really need to get serious about really looking into where we are and understanding our process and our self-awareness of healing, empowerment, the action we're taking daily, our relationships, and our transformation. I think when we lead into all of those things, you become new, you become risen, um, and resurrection is a real thing.
Mm,
And I think it's supposed to happen. I think there's moments and seasons where we have to kind of fall back and become renewed. And I'm happy to say that I've put in a lot of work and a lot of decades of that inner work so that I could be on platforms like this to encourage women and people all over the world of being renewed and to rise again. So that's who I
absolutely.
am.
Well, I love it. And I thank God that you've put in the work because of you and Jesse and many others like you that have put the work in and have had revelations that other people might be privy to sort of look at themselves and think, I wonder if that's why I think the way I do, or I wonder if, just something to help them question maybe what their next step might could be or should be, or lead them in the direction of seeking God and finding out what is the bigger picture, what is your picture, what is your vision for me.
Mhm.
So I thank you so much for coming on, and apologize for the technical difficulties, but I think we got everything that God wanted us to get together and for other people to listen to. And again, gosh, God bless you and Jesse on your journeys. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I know that you guys have done a lot of good by the hard work that you guys have put into this. So thank you so much, Desiree. I appreciate
Thank you
you.
so much, Trish. I appreciate you having me on here and having the platform for people to come on to be able to share our stories and impact the world, and also for sharing some of your story. Um, that was incredible for me because I don't remember that piece of the story. So I was thankful that you were able to share that in this space with me. So thank you so much, and
Absolutely.
you keep doing the same work as well.
Thank you. It's an honor. I hope that you have a blessed rest of your day and your week, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And what a beautiful guest that we had. I hope that you guys took some nuggets that you can sort of think about and pray about, and hopefully move into a place of healing where God wants you to be. He wants us to be the people that He created for us to be. And so I thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to share and like, comment, and subscribe. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week. I hope you guys have a great night. Bye.